The first time I got into ocean sports was when I was 4 years old. Being blessed growing up on the island of Maui, my parents were avid surfers and windsurfers, and because of them, they just kind of gave me the greatest opportunity to get in the water. And they were both working full-time jobs, so a lot of times it was the weekends that we'd get to go, my brother and I. But just the fact that we lived on an island, it was very accessible, and the culture was very, ocean centered. So that really made it easy for me to kind of follow in this professional athlete footsteps. I never really thought about mastering any disciplines growing up. I knew I loved them all, and the fact that I was able to do them consistently because of the conditions provided on Maui, being that it's windy and there's good waves pretty frequent, you could kind of bounce around multiple sports. And it's also a hot spot for a lot of the sports that we know today. You know, they were being invented while I was growing up. And that right there really made it pretty easy for me to kind of get into them all. And it was all fueled based on passion. I think I felt like an outsider growing up mainly because I had my hands in so many different sports, and within each sport or discipline of surfing, there's sort of little tribes that you jump in between. You know, you're either with windsurfers, you're with the kitesurfers, you're with the surfers, the stand-up paddlers. You know, there's like different groups of people that love to do these sports, and when you're not consistently in one, you don't really have a place in any sort of thing. And for me, it wasn't about being in a clique or kind of one of these tribes. It was obviously just doing the sport. But at times, you know, when you're growing up, it could feel like you're not a part of something, you know, and quickly I outgrew that mentally, and now I feel comfortable in my own skin doing what I would rather do. And I oftentimes just do what I want, you know, like this is kind of my path, and if people don't like it, that's all right, because everyone has their opinions. But that's yeah, you know, it was a good learning experience growing up. As far as I'm concerned, every sport that I've been able to do, I've been able to draw on certain things that the other sport didn't have. So in a very critical situation, especially in big waves, I'm able to rely on my windsurfing and my kiting and my small wave surfing and my foil riding and my stand-up paddle endurance. You know, all these things help me survive a bad wipeout, as well as kind of, I think, know every angle of what possibly could happen. All those different approaches for so many years, it always kept wave riding very fresh. I never got bored or sick of just doing one sport, because as soon as I kind of felt like I was getting burnt out, I could just transition to another one. And because I was doing so many in one single day, it was like I always felt like I was behind the eight ball in terms of progression. Like, oh, I could always be better, because, you know, everyone's improving everywhere around, and you're like, I'm trying to keep up. The sea for me makes me so happy because it's just sort of a place of, you know, I can constantly test myself, but also enjoy myself at the same time. It's always there. It's for free. And, you know, I grew up doing it for so long that it's kind of who I am now. Like, really imagining not being in the water is almost worse than going to jail, or it is like going to jail, just because it's like, feels like it's built into my cells. And the salt water in itself feels really good, just being immersed in it, and just kind of being one for a moment. All that other stuff just sort of melts away that you take from land. For me, the big wave season this year, 2019 season, was probably the best I've ever had yet. We didn't have the most consistent big swells. We actually had some of the most challenging conditions that I could ever remember. It was a lot of wind, really big waves, and very unforgiving. And the fact that, you know, I was able to survive another season, but at the same time feel like my level went up a notch. I accomplished everything that I kind of set out to do on a performance level. So coming into this new season, I'm really, really excited, because there's still so much left to be done for me to, go to the next level. For me right now, focusing on winning a Big Wave World title on the Big Wave World Tour. I've been able to win a lot of different things across a few sports, and it's just, for me, each event is sort of like, not so much beating someone else, but kind of like proving to myself that, okay, I've reached this certain point, and where can I go next? It's like winning is just, basically having a lot of fun doing it. And my goals, for sure, is always to try to be the best I could possibly be. And to be the best I could possibly be requires just testing myself against the world's best consistently. Oh, that's tricky to say. There's so many great big waves in the world. A place in Fiji called Cloudbreak is unbelievable. When you get a really big wave there, it's just going to be one of the longest barrels of your entire life, and one of the most beautiful as well. But then there's also aspects like the darker, colder places like Nazaré, Portugal, or Mavericks in California. They're cold and scary, but one ride out there can give you an adrenaline rush that would last the entire summer. It just depends on, where I'm at in the world at that moment. It's pretty tricky to surf those waves consistently since they're very rare. And so, that's really just, wherever I'm at. I don't not like anywhere. I think every place has sort of something special about it. Well, growing up, I've noticed the changes in the ocean, mostly in the pollution, mainly microplastics, something that I didn't used to see quite as much when I was a kid, but now with so many people around the world and waterways just, spewing stuff into the ocean, I think it's one thing to be able to pick it all up, which is great, because you can prevent, turtles and other sea life from eating it and dying. I think what we're finding now is a lot of the fish that are consuming microplastics, it's sort of that plastic chemical is morphing into their DNA, and that in itself is going to go back into us. And if we all don't want to have cancer later on in life from fish, I suggest we probably try to keep the oceans much cleaner. The only way I think to prevent that from happening is to turn off the tap, which is going to these major metropolises with these waterways and capturing all that trash that is running out in the ocean. It's kind of one of those things, out of sight, out of mind. If you see the trash one day and then it's gone because the water took it, you're not going to think about it. But it's a full circle, and it's a bad one. At the end of the day, we got to protect the environment because we are part of it. And if it goes down, we're getting dragged with it too.